This podcast is brought to you by Hoare Chartered Accountants. Hoare Chartered Accountants are based in Galway City and are a leading provider of audit, accountancy and taxation services. For more information, visit hoarecharteredaccountants.ie. Now you're welcome along to the Maroon and White pod. I'm joined by Maurice Brosnan this evening to look back on Galway's fantastic victory and narrow victory over Mayo yesterday in the Connacht final. It's four in a row for Galway that they have won the Connacht Senior Football Championship. So congratulations to the team and management and everyone involved there. Another sweet one, Mars.
Yeah, probably the best of all the kind of titles that this team have won, I would say, for a number of different reasons. The way they won it, the sense around the entire day was just I don't know about you, but I was down there early, so got the sense around town for the mini marathon, and you started to hear very positive reports about ticket sales. I think the weather would have definitely helped in that sense. Like it went from a bit of talk about 20,000 in the morning to end up over 27, which is brilliant. And then there's I'm sure you've been going to kind of finals as long as I have. You're always kind of apprehensive about the Mayo crowd and the influence that would have. And you got there yesterday and you saw like a genuine 50-50 crowd. Like the Galway just turned out in force for it. And all that contributed to, geez, the scenes after were just phenomenal. Like to see that I was up in the stand, obviously at that stage, finishing copy, and you look down and you just see the maroon and white across the pitch in Castlebar, and Sean getting pretty used to making those speeches now was brilliant. Like a real credit to everybody involved really for what they achieved yesterday, because it's not a mean thing, like four titles in a row is a serious achievement. It is something that should be should be celebrated. It should be acknowledged as a genuinely brilliant feat. So I'm sure they celebrated last night and they fully deserve to.
I don't know about you, but in the early noughties when Mayo were dominated under Horan, there's one game I can always remember, and it's Mayo beating Galway 4-16 to 11 points in Pearse Stadium.
Yeah.
So when you look at this four in a row now, it's an unbelievable achievement when you consider in the past the dominance Mayo have had over Galway.
It is, yeah, and I mean, it's a testament to. Afterwards, Poor Choice was asked about this, the four in a row, and he said it's probably a bad thing that it took us as a county as long to do it, which is an interesting idea because there were some dark days in between, and it's probably you know as a county, it's probably worth making sure that you do acknowledge this, do savor it. I'm somebody in my job who's often argued that I think the provincial system is the elephant in the room. It's in the way of a proper, successful structure for Gaelic football. But then it is very hard to argue against when you see the contest we got yesterday, how much both teams genuinely were desperate to win, the scenes afterwards, that it is significant. Like it does have value still. There's no denying that. So to achieve what they did, it just you hold your hands up to them. Like it was a very, very impressive win by a serious team now, like by a hard nosed, really resolute side. And I'd say that's probably what would have pleased Pork and the group the most.
Yeah, as you mentioned, you have to appreciate these days and appreciate a Connacht title for the fourth year in a row, and even the whole atmosphere yesterday of 27,000. There's no point in saying otherwise. Up to yesterday, the crowds have been issues this year across the Hurling and Football Championship, but to see that much of a crowd and the Galway Mayo supporters going toe to toe, just a brilliant occasion yesterday in Castlebar, I thought.
Oh, it was magic. Yeah. No, I mean everything. Some stuff is just coincidence. Like the weather, I think definitely helped
Yeah.
yesterday to get people to come out. The I'm sure we'll get talking about it later. I think the refereeing contributed to the game that it was in terms of how physical it was, and that's my. I mean, give me a 50 shot physical full-blooded contest over a 60, 70 shot shootout up and down the pitch any day. That what we saw yesterday is much more in my wheelhouse, which makes it a bit. I just think that definitely contributed to the sense of the game. Like some of the turnovers were celebrated like they were scores, like absolute scores. Matthew Thompson's turnover on Roy Brickington in the first half in the corner, like the roar that got from the stand was phenomenal. Yeah, there's a bunch of different reasons that contributed to being as thrilling as it was. No more so than the last 15 minutes, which was just insane.
I don't know about you, but it was funny yesterday being on the terrace. So the position I was on the terrace, you couldn't see the clock. So when the Hooter went, you were trying to guess how much time was gone, and even the service near the terrace side wasn't hectic, so you were struggling to get the time. So it was almost a bit of guesswork before that Hooter went off.
Yeah, I mean there's a couple of issues with the Hooter in general from all accounts which need to be addressed. I do think like I mean amidst this new rules thing, you probably should have a game clock visible to everybody in the ground. That's just no more as particularly the players like that is absolutely integral. And then I mean the drama of working that final shot and seeing it wasn't a high percentage shot, but it's still a match you ran under not a huge amount of pressure with the wind at his back, and you think, oh, this is. And I actually thought it was Peter Cook who bit in and then had to bite back out and try and get across, and he did well to get some sort of shadow pressure on as that shot was coming off. But look, it was what a way for it to close out. You would feel like I mean the I have a huge amount of sympathy for Mayo for the way that it ended. Like they came so close, but from a goal perspective, yeah, to dig it out like that was just very admirable.
Absolutely, and obviously a lot being made of the game afterwards. The chances Mayo left behind them, Galway digging in. In your eyes, did the better team win yesterday?
That's an interesting question, and it's a very hard one to answer, really. So, I think Mayo will be haunted by losing that game yesterday. I thought players and management, players in the tunnel afterwards, or talking to Kevin McStay, were shattered. Like took that. There was no doubt, despite all the talk about the diminishing of the provincial championship and draws during the week, that they were desperate to win that game. They put a huge amount of stock in trying to get it done. So and they, I think it really hurt them to lose it. But a couple of things, right? So I don't think amidst there's a long list of controversy and conjecture around this game. I don't think it was a penalty. Firstly, like not in the context of how physicality was refereed in that game elsewhere. And the reason I say that is that the reason, Paul, that I liked this game is because you saw a genuine reward for robust, good tackling. So you look at the list of players who are pulled for steps, for argument's sake. Like Ryan O'Donoghue who caught Johnny McGrath at one stage in the tan, just running up behind him. Aidan O'Shea caught Killian McDade was caught once and could have been caught again. Davin Neary was pulled when he ran straight into Liam Silk. So that physicality was a good thing for the game. It contributed to Enda Hessian, very first attack, is driving down the centre. Dylan McHugh nails him, and the reward is that you get a turnover and a quick break. Jordan Flynn runs down the centre, he's nailed, quick break. Uh, Killy McDade takes a shot. Looks like to me a bit of a blatant push, but the referee tells him to get up. So you see the Ryan Dunn who had a turnover in the from the short kick out when he just came and before he fisted the ball over the bar. Very similar thing again. So in the context of all that physicality, to pull a penalty for that tug, I thought was extremely harsh. And I think Mayo would be right to have a grievance about that in particular. At the same time, there's 50 minutes left in this game, and you're level, and you're at home, and you have the wind at your back, and a chance to end your rivals 4 in a row bit, and they didn't get it done. And that park everything else for a second. The chance was there, like you had the opportunity, and they didn't take it. And to answer your question, I do think Galway deserved to win the game because of they produced some huge moments when they really needed them, like down the straight there when it's cold red and everything can potentially go wrong. And you've got Dylan McHugh's block and Conor Gleeson safe and Matthew Tierney winning an incredible kick out. And just Liam O'Conneilla, who I don't remember once this year kicking a point on his left foot, like not once. And to do that down the straight there was just, oh, it was just class. Like the composure and resilience they showed down there was exactly the thing that I think Paul Joyce is trying to instill in this team. So for that, I do think that you could not argue that Galway didn't deserve to win the game because when the chance was there, they went and took it.
I thought it was really interesting to hear Dylan McHugh after talk about Joe McElroy's block from our man from the All Ireland final to reference something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, and I thought it was a team across the way Galway were defending yesterday that they were just adamant. No player is ever getting a non-pressure shot off inside our D. So, Paul Towie had a a wide at one stage when he actually dummied it first, and Jack Lynn was like a full bore, like tried to get drive in his boot, was caught by the dummy, but I think it was Jimmy Hughes coming right behind him. Towie tried the snapshot and hooked it. Kieran Malloy had an incredible block at one stage. For Enda Hession's goal chance, if you watch that back, Sean Kelly is crumbling like a train straight across there trying to get on his boot. Is actually how I think he ended up hurting himself. So they're just, you can tell they defensively they take huge pride in the fact that very few teams get through on them. That I'd say the first goal will really hurt them. Like that was a killer breach. And it's McHale who gives the ball in, and Jack Lynn is turned inside out by Davinieri, and McHale's trail run isn't probably tracked well enough. And then after all that, despite that, Johnny McGrath probably could have kept it out when there was the goal chance.
Yeah.
Uh, but overall, I thought defensively, once again, they were excellent, like really, really excellent. And the
Has
great thing is,
that came from Graham or Morris defensively?
I think it was part of this team's identity. A team's identity is an interesting thing, Paul.
Yeah.
I often think about it. Like, what does, and we'll find out hopefully in a couple of years' time when he sits down and does a reflection on it. But what are the values Park Joyce wants his Galway team to represent? Like, what are the things that he puts most stock in? And you try and get a sense of that or an insight into his language or what he talks about. So at the Connacht launch, we asked him about what the things he was trying to change. And he referenced the right that there was a city culture maybe of lads wearing Galway tops for the sake of it, and he wanted to get rid of that. And I thought that was an interesting answer. And then you see kind of the subtle stuff about what he puts real stock on or what he celebrates. And I don't think it's like Galway are not a flashy, class forward, free flowing team. They are a hard nosed, serious, resilient group who, when it comes down to it, the stuff that matters. Every dressing room, Paul, they put up a poster and
Yeah.
you have different words on it, whatever, like, and stuff that, what are your values? Like, what are the stuff you put in, and so, like, accountability, humility, whatever, the stuff that all teams would put up. Galway had a poster up yesterday, which was a picture of the group, and it was a quote that blood doesn't show in a maroon jersey. That was the quote on the poster, and that quote actually. Years ago, there was a Scottish Cup final, 1950s. Hearts bet Celtic, and John Cummings was a Hearts player. Got injured during the game, taken off, wrapped his head, came back on, and they won whatever 3-1, I think. And he gave that quote that the Hearts jersey, maroon doesn't show in a, or blood doesn't show in a maroon jersey, and Hearts put it over in the top of their tunnel when players are walking out. They see it every time when they touch it. Now you can say that's a cliche trite thing, like every team is doing this stuff. What does it matter? But what is that trying to say about that Galway group? Like, what's the thing that he wants them to put priorities in? And I think it's that when it comes down to it, we're a team will lay our body on the line to win a Connacht title against Mayo. That when if Dylan McHugh has to dive full bore on a fella's boot in the last minute, he's going to do it. If lads are going to have to throw themselves in the air under kickouts and put themselves under a bit of danger, they're going to do it. Like they are just a serious. There's an edge to this team that you mentioned that Mayo 2014, those couple of defeats. The one thing I thought about that was that I tell you at times you think, oh, geez, we're Galway bullied there today, and they weren't. You couldn't say that about this group. No matter what happens to them, no matter how they lose, they won't be bullied. And I think that's the team that Porrick built. That's what he wants in his group.
You're even talking there about the moments. McHugh's block, the way he dives down, incredible. Conor Gleeson's save. Like those were the moments. I know all week people were maybe slightly getting carried away, saying that this Galway team were going to maybe beat Mayo more than previous years. But these moments were moments that it was always going to come down to yesterday down the stretch.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, I mean, that's the football is a brilliant, magical, and ultimately incredibly cruel game. And that's why you have to enjoy moments like this because it doesn't be long coming back around, and you'll feel the joy because you will feel the sting afterwards. So there's Paul Towie has 3 shots from that stretch, and I'd say he'll be haunted by every one of them. That moment just didn't come, and the Ryan Runner free that Connor was able to touch over, like that is you're talking about. The margins here are so fine, like they're so fine. So I think that definitely from a goal perspective, like you're just gonna, I can imagine there won't be a more enjoyable video session than this one because some of what they produced in those last 15 minutes was awesome. All that said, it was still, there was an edge to it. Like the game is, as I said earlier, it's a cruel game. It can be an absolutely rootless game. Like geez, Costini is very little wrong to be come back off again. It's one slip with a goal chance basically, and he's gone a couple of minutes later. But that's the nature of it. Like that's football is a very, very strange and surreal game. But yeah, to answer your question, I think when Galway look back on that, they will just take so much pride from what they did in those last 15 minutes. Like the way they were able to close it out was amazing.
Even if you're looking at it early on, you mentioned the goal early on, Mayo go 1-2 to 2 ahead. Galway's next score is 17 minutes. Like that first quarter, you were getting maybe a slight bit worried with the way Galway played in that first quarter.
Yeah, I think look, in fairness, you got to give Mayo credit. Like they came with a plan against the wind and executed it very, very effectively. Like they effectively starved Galway of the ball early on. They tried to. I think they might have. If you looked at Galway's recent games, maybe would you have seen that Johnny McGrath, the New York game, didn't look necessarily as comfortable out the pitch, and they tried to exploit that by bringing Ryan Runhu out. Now, it's easy to say this in hindsight. I appreciate I'm not necessarily so sure was that a good idea to begin with. I wonder was there a way of you're in trouble on your kick out, you've got Aidan O'Shea in there, and you've got is there a way of getting Ryan Runhu into a game close to goal and maybe bringing Aidan O'Shea out as an 11, let's say, for argument's sake. Because as you know already, Johnny McGrath is very comfortable out the pitch. It's where he plays for Carlos Strachan, and he ended up assisting. He won the penalty and assisted a Robert Finley point a couple of minutes later. So he did some damage going the other way too. But look, they tried to come with something different. So they bring Ryan out the pitch. Stephen Cohen is going to mark Paul Conroy when he comes into his own half. Again, not so sure did that work. Uh, but against the wind, they were very effective and got a really good start and were looked almost comfortable early on. And then Galway's response to that was really, really impressive. I thought it was Mayo had a plan. Galway had a plan too. Like their first six shots are all 2 point shots. That's not a
Yeah.
coincidence, you know. They very clearly knew what they needed to do to build that halftime lead, went after it. And so despite the fact that you go 3 from 6 with those shots, you're still at you're 50% conversion, but you're 100% return. Like if you're shooting for 1 pointers there, you'd have to hit all six, and they hit 3 from 6. So I'd say they were reasonably happy with that. Yeah, then they just got on top of the kick out and got on a real run. But all that said, I mean, at halftime, I was not convinced that it was enough. Like I look at 8 points, like with that wind, geez,
You're really only 4 points up.
yeah, basically, yeah. Yeah, I think the thing that the worry you had for Mayo was do they have the shooters to take advantage of this? Like, do they have the 2 point kickers to? But then, I mean, Ryan and O'Donoghue hit them very, very quickly after the break. But yeah, you were there was definitely an element at halftime where like, geez, I don't know is 8 points enough with that wind? And Mayo very clearly had a plan against it. I'm pretty sure they're going to have a plan with it too. That you're very fine margins away from saying it worked.
Yeah, even we talked about Shane being a cheat code. It felt like Paul Connery was a cheat code with the 2 pointers, the three in a row. Then Thompson, Kelly, McDade, they all add scores and go 1-2 to 10. Obviously, the penalty comes then 1-10 to 1-2. McHale hits back and Finnerty gets one on the stroke of half time. Go in 1-11 to 1-3 in front. As you mentioned there, it was hard to know was it enough, but we haven't mentioned him yet. But Killian McDade, I'm still struggling to figure out why he didn't win man of the match. Now, Paul Conroy was top class, but I just felt yesterday McDade was the best player on the pitch in Castlebar.
Yeah, I'll answer that in two parts. The Paul Connery one, it was look, he was absolutely excellent, and the kicks left and right is freakish, and the fact they nailed the free too is that's a great weapon to have in the locker now as well. I would say though that of, again as I say, like this margins are so thin here, but of all the things that I think Mayo would have regrets about, I think they look back on that matchup and say Stephen Cohen to me was playing as a wing back, but when Paul Connery came forward was trying to mark him, and that. Like you went into a Dublin game last year and did very well on Brian Fenton because you man marked him. Donald McHugh went and did a job. That was his task for the day. Paul Conroy is a more of a scoring threat than Brian Fenton in the old game, never mind in the new game, like with
Yeah.
the new rules. So I think that was a very difficult task for a matchup. Like Paul Connery kicks a 2 pointer on his left foot. I'm pretty sure it was Darren McHale that was marking him for that, which is again, there's a real threat here. Like if I was to ask you who's going to kick 2 pointers for Galway here, I think you would have come with one answer. And he took full advantage of that. But I think they look back on that and think, geez, did we get that matchup right? Which is an easy thing to say in hindsight, I appreciate. The Kenny McDade one, he kind of summed up the game for me, didn't he? Like he wasn't perfect. He had two wides. He was turned out, carried, caught for steps once and could have been caught again. But then just talk about moments like geez, the one that's going to be in everyone's head is the run with Hessian, and he's just like a train, and he was refusing point blank to stop. And I know it's been pointed out that look, it's a coin flip. Like, did he overcarry the ball? He was being fouled anyway. So I mean, you
Yeah.
could bring it back for the free if you want. But I thought that was huge, and his ability to just punch lines and dive up.
His run even after where he didn't get to score, I thought it was something Galway needed because they were struggling to even keep the ball up there.
Yeah, into that breeze to get up the just get us up the pitch when we need it. He's fearless on breaking ball. I saw somebody yesterday describe him as a Tasmanian devil, which I think is a good description. It is such a joy to see him back in this form. Like just a player like that and what he could do for what he can do in Gaelic football and what he could do for Galway is incredible. So, he was absolutely awesome. His strike into the wind, like, would you coach if an under 12 did it? Would you give out him for kicking the ball that high into the wind? And yet somehow it worked. He just finds a way. That whole team found a way, and he embodied it.
Do you think in a certain sense the vice captain role has helped him?
That's an interesting question. I hadn't given that enough consideration until you said it. I thought a couple of things. He spoke very well after,
Yeah.
really, really well, and so you kind of got a sense. Okay, I get why. He also is like there is a sense Galway are going to need this guy to be a leader and to have a set role, and he probably has. He's been mixed around a small bit and maybe struggled to find his best position to try and accommodate this monstrous middle third that we have, and does he have to get out of midfield and stuff? But you saw yesterday the value that he can have. He also kind of he carries the fight. Like you were there as well. You would have seen like he's at the center of a couple of the off the ball skirmishes, and he's
Yeah.
not taking a backward step at all. But for me, the difference with him and maybe some of his opponents yesterday was he is okay, he's bringing rage. He's throwing himself into everything. He's in control. Like I never got the sense, oh, this guy, his composure has slipped. He's letting it go, which I don't think you could say for everybody on the pitch yesterday. So from that perspective, he can take a huge amount of credit. And there is kind of a like Killian did at his best is it's the Armagh game in 2022. Like it's this raging defiance and this thing, never say die. I'm going to go again, I'm going to go again attitude. And you saw it in full display yesterday. So if that's just a fingers crossed, that's just a sign of what's to come this summer. And if it is, he'll be a hard man to be stopped.
Just another man I want to touch on too, Matthew Thompson even coming in yesterday. In one way, he didn't really get like a massive amount of game time throughout the league. Played the Dublin game, did well. Didn't play the last game against Kerry, did well against New York, did well against Roscommon, and he's really built on it. But what has he done to break into this team? Because this is a player who wasn't even on the senior panel last year. Obviously had a good club championship, but what has he done for you over the last few weeks to come in as is he 20 or 21 now? But to
21, I
be
think, yeah. It's
yeah,
Match is a phenomenal story. Like it from I think his parents are from Milltown, are they?
yeah, to be
But
cousins with the Costellos, yeah.
yeah, yeah. But he's like, I talked to a couple of Sothill lads about this recently. Like, Matt Thompson's playing a junior match when John O'Mahony's Sothill manager, and he's watching him and he says, "This guy has something. Let's get him in." And he's playing senior league games. He actually played against Barnet a couple of times. He would have gone to war with James Kennedy, I remember, in a couple of games. And you're like, okay, I can see something here. And then he went into the 20s and showed a bit of signs. And then suddenly he's 20s captain and he's progressing again. You're like, right, this guy could be a right good footballer. And then he goes into the seniors and you're like, this guy could be a 5, 10 year Galway career. And then you watch yesterday, like, this guy could be the linchpin for this team in a couple of short years' time. Like, he was just, he is absolutely fearless. You can always tell that he had the raw ability. He probably just needed the football. But you see in his attitude to the two, like the amount of kickouts he won was ridiculous. I go back to that turnover in the first half when he lines up breaking in, and genuinely that felt like a score. Like in the moment in the game when that came, that was such a huge moment. So he, I think a couple of things have happened for him that have suited him. The fact that Finnan O'Lee had a bad injury, you had a couple of other lads in that corner. Keelan O'Curran got injured, Johnny Heaney got injured. There was a spot up for grabs basically, and somebody had to put their hands up. And boy, did he do it! Like you just have to, when your chance comes, you got to take it, and he did. And there's a lot of players I think who look at that and see that's my that's my path in. That I just need to be ready, and when your time comes, and it will come. That's increasing. We're seeing that you got to be ready for it, and this guy looks born ready.
I think we've discussed this in the past. It was vital really for Galway to develop someone outside of a Damien, a Rob, a Matthew Tierney, a Shane. Like someone needed to come in and grab it. We've seen players in the past in fits and starts come in and take their opportunity, but like he's really grabbed it with two hands.
Yeah, and he probably will. There's a balance to that role is an interesting role. It's a very hard thing to get right, and no more than like there's a lot of guys there who you could see get their chance down the line. Like Kieran O'Curran when he comes back, Liam McNeil came on and kicked a great point. You've got Brian Mannion who's still in there as well. A couple of guys who for that corner forward spot. Like I thought, does my favorite point in this game actually was the Darren McHale's point in the second half, his second point when it was like turnovers everywhere. Sean Kelly tries to drive the centre. He's bottled up, pops the ball back outside. Matthew Thompson kicks the ball to Rob Fernie at the back post. He wins it, tries to go past Coyne. He stood up. Mayo attack, quick kick. Sean McCurran turns over Aidan O'Shea, and then there's another turnover, and he just every single time the ball was lost, there was like a huge roar. But anyway, the reason I bring that up, I thought Matthew Thompson could have actually carried that in and had a shot. Like I don't think he needed to try and hit Rob there, like
Yeah.
for argument's sake, and he'll develop that too. Like you're trying to accommodate players, you're trying to get them into the game. He definitely assisted one of Paul Conroy's two pointers. So he is creating as well. But the next, if as you saw, he's well able to take a score too, and if he can just develop that further, sure, the ceiling is so high that it doesn't bode thinking about.
If we're looking at that last quarter, as you mentioned, I think as well fans were concerned when it came back to 113 to 113. But the big thing was Mayo never got that 1 point in front of Galway with the breeze, so they were able to keep battling on. Just for the Ryan O'Donoghue free where it hits Conor Gleeson's fingers, do you think that should have been a 2 pointer or was it over before it touched Gleeson's hands?
Look, I don't like that rule, but I mean, I'm not as convinced as some people are that that
Yeah.
ball had to be over the. There was an angle, not the angle where they were showing relentlessly from under the post. There was an angle from behind the goal where does the first touch come? I'm not so sure. Like unless the man has rubber wrists, I'm not so sure if he was able to touch the ball in that angle. So it's look again. I think it was a very difficult call. I'm not a fan of that rule. Like
Yeah.
a 2 pointer should be a 2 pointer. So maybe that'll change. But I mean, the look like,
Are they
as I
able
said
to
earlier.
change any of these throughout championship or what's the
From my understanding is they're not going to change anything more for the rest of the year. They're going to leave
okay.
it alone for the rest of the championship, so that won't be a factor. They're going to see how it plays out. That's not to say they're all definitely in. There will be I think club championship will really test some of these rules. Like the people keep saying, wait to see them in Croke Park. Croke Park can't dictate the rules for the rest of the country. Like wait until you see them in
Keep stadium?
Mortis game out in Barna when Lettermore and Barna are going toe to toe like that. That's the real test for these rules. So, uh, but anyway, to answer your question, no, I don't uh, see them changing anything. I don't think they should either. But, like as I said, Paul, I think the referee in this game contributed to what we saw, and no more than I thought the penalty was harsh. You can get caught in the what ifs and getting into the was the free count 28 to 15 like was Galway 13 more. I seem to remember a Mayo manager after the league final had a serious issue with a one-sided free count, so you can get caught in the weeds in that. And in fairness to Mayo, Kevin McStay held up his hands up and said you're going to hear no excuses from us, like that is we're not interested in that. And that's the reality of it. So the penalty definitely was soft. The other ones, like these are marginal calls, sometimes they go for you, sometimes they don't.
Yeah, I think so. And even a couple of the Galway calls, like Jack Lynn, for instance, when he's coming out at that stage, and he's, in one sense, I think at one stage he probably is looking, you're looking for the free too much before he comes out with the ball, and that's why he gets done. Keane Hernan's unlucky, but there's a couple of these calls in every game. I think some supporters might just be getting a bit too hung up on it.
And I mean, as a general rule, I just find, and I'm guilty of it myself sometimes, but like referee analysis is so boring. It's the same trite. Oh, that one was harsh. Oh, we should talk. Like there's in my opinion, there's a million more interesting things that happen in games generally. I don't typically like talking about referees, especially because nothing changes. Like you don't make their job easier. You don't. It's not going to prompt anything further down the line. Like nothing. It has no discernible impact on the game. It's just empty noise. So, from my perspective, there's a million things that happened in that game that were very interesting. I don't think the refereeing was one of them. While acknowledging, the big call, like the penalty, I thought was harsh.
Yeah, the way they finished the game and hung on for the victory goal, and then you mentioned Liam O'Neill. He took his time, but some scoring is left, as you mentioned. Is that way Galway finished out the game? Was that the most impressive thing for you coming away from this
Yeah,
game?
definitely. Yeah, 100%. Like that's the can you show that that calm under pressure down the straight? Uh, we're just gonna find a way. Just I mean, dig into your guts and find a way to dig it out and to do it without Shane Walsh and Damien Comer and Footballer of the Year nominee John Maher is just seriously impressive. So the players that stood up and the way they stood up, I think that will be enormously encouraging for Galway. That I mean, it's worth. And forget it, like whatever about the group and stuff. The sense of accomplishment and the momentum they'll carry out of this is worth it. It's worth going into what do we call it, the group of death or and all that kind of thing. Like it is, it's worth that pain because I think they will take so much from a win. Not purely the fact that they won against their rivals away, but how they did it, how they drove it out. Well, the credit in the bank they have there is enormous.
We haven't come to the point, obviously, you mentioned Damien and Shane. Yeah, obviously, two big losses. Damien obviously had that setback in the challenge against Cork last weekend. Where do you see it now as Damien and Shane, obviously? Because you still feel the two players we need if we're going to get an All Ireland this year. But where do you see them in the overall context of this Galway team now?
Yeah, like the first thing I would say is there's not two players I would feel sorrier for
Mm.
in my sporting lifetime than Shane Walsh and Damien Comer. Like they're haunted by injuries. Like when I heard that about Damien coming off in UL, I just felt like I really felt for him. Like I straight away my mind was going back to watching him limping around against Tuam in the quarterfinal last year and just trying to soldier through it, which is something that you become to associate with him a lot. And if you could wish two lads to just get a clean run, it would be both of them. The Shane Walsh one, I think, from what I gathered, he had the back injury at the back of the league, and same weekend as the Roscommon game was in a doing a skill session, and then felt the hamstring during that. So they're both familiar injuries, I suppose, to a certain extent. Look, fingers crossed, Paul. They're back and they're fit for the business end of the championship, and in the meantime, like it's funny. I've noticed a strain of commentary now about the way Pádraig Joyce talks about the two lads in particular. Like his comment after the game was they weren't fit for today. If they're fit for the next day, great. If not, we seem to be okay without them. And I often think like what else do you expect him to say? Like in those post match interviews, Matt, they're not talking to us, the media. They're talking to that's the way to get a message to fans and to their players. And if Port Joyce came out for argument's sake and started pining for the lads who were away and talking about how lucky they are with injuries, what message does that send to the group? Like we desperately need these lads to be back. Without them, we're in trouble. So he has to talk the way he does. Don't Nobody should read more into that than that. Like Paul Joyce's relationship with Shane Walsh, we'll learn about that again down the line. I think it's much better than a lot of people realize. Like in fact, I think they're very close. So like, you're reading into flashes of minute 30-second interviews in media, not what's going on an entire week, not what's the last couple of weeks of when they're training out in Tuam, or I'm sure they're back in Sawtell now ahead of the Dublin game. That's the stuff that matters. Like the reality is, outside that group, we don't really know. So what we do know is that Paul Joyce is saying to his team, even if we don't have two very, very good players, we're still good enough. That's his message. And I mean, in some ways, I'm like, what else should he say? He nails it. That's all you can ask for a manager. He get that message across.
Do you still feel Galway need them at the peak of their powers to win the All Ireland?
I do, yeah, yeah. I do. Yeah, they're two brilliant, brilliant players. You saw when Shane Walsh was clicking earlier in the league, it was absolutely electric. You saw how important Comer was in the Connacht final last year. So they're look, t great teams often have to find a way without somebody. It's just in some ways it's the cruelty of the game. Like somebody is going to drop. Look at the Limerick hurlers over the last couple of years. They're always at least one key player is away. You need the depth to be able to sustain that. You look at across the board now. You're seeing it. Kerry had to deal with it. Now I appreciate it's nowhere near the same challenge, but they didn't have Paddy Clifford for the game at the weekend, or you just have to deal with that. So. There will be players who will drop, but I do think they're two very important players for Galway if they're going to get over the line this year.
Are we looking at a player playing Stephen Campbell role?
There's a very interesting question. I potentially, yeah, potentially. Um, Now that said, like that player doesn't necessarily have to be. Galway have a very good ability to get. Do you know who I was thinking of yesterday when I saw Liam McKinney kick that point on his left? I think the Tom O'Connell against Dublin in the quarterfinal last
Yeah.
year, and the point that he kicked, and that says a lot about the lads, obviously, but it says more about imagine the environment you're in where I'll go back and check this and I'll write about it during the week, but I'm pretty sure Liam McNeil hasn't taken a shot on his left foot this year. So, like, you're saying to a young lad, you're going to get a chance in a Connacht final, and when we sorely need a point, you're going to be on your weaker side, and he nails it. He just absolutely slots it. Like, can you imagine the mental space he must have been in to feel that supported and that calm in that clutch moment? So I think it says a lot about the lads that are coming in. And I have to say, I mean, park the Call Sweeney thing for a second. They got a punch off the bench yesterday. Like they got lads came in and made their mark, which is a consistent thing. I thought Keane Hernan was by his side. I thought he was deadly. Like just another fella. If he gets a run now, you'd just be very encouraged to see what he could do, and that's all he needs. Just stay fit. But I really thought he looked so just uber composed. His catch from the kick out was absolutely class. I mean, I don't know, is it necessarily a Stephen Campbell role as much as it's just point blank depth? Do you have the depth? And as you're seeing now, Galway are developing it.
On the depth point, like no Shane, no Comer yesterday. Peter Cook comes in. John Daly isn't used. Daniel O'Flaherty isn't used. Johnny Healy and Killian O'Carroll not there. It's in a very healthy position. You would have to say overall the squad depth at the minute.
Yeah, and I think, Killian McCurn's injury, the meniscus, that was before the New York game. So that will start to clean up relatively soon. I think a similar thing or two for Johnny Heaney. It sounds like Finlay O'Leary's hamstring might be a bit tricky, but similar thing again. It's not an injury crisis. Do you know? They're in a reasonably good place. I thought it was great to see John Daly back and
Yeah.
as if nothing else other than an option. I mean, you look like well, Daniel Farty was one of Galway's best players at times in the league and didn't get on yesterday. Like that's a sign of serious strength, I think.
Yeah.
So
I was only
yeah,
thinking when we were picking the 15, I think it was early on in the league, and we were both agreeing with Daniel O'Flaherty cornerback.
yeah, yeah. So that's very maybe that says something about it, two of us now. I don't know, but I think it's very encouraging that the way that they've developed options and their ability to just get lads in. I didn't see Matthew Thompson taking to it. I make this point I'd say every time I talk to you, I appreciate, it, but like they get lads into that environment and they just go boom, like they just absolutely accelerate, and that's a serious testament to this group.
Is it making you uncomfortable now that fullback could come between Keane Hernan and Sean Fitzgerald, two of Barnum?
Oh, don't worry, we'll find space for them both. It's horses for courses.
Yeah,
It is that's the nature of it. To go back to that idea about depth, I think like Sean Fitzgerald has been an excellent player for Galway for the last couple of years. He was getting close to the line yesterday. I think he'd been pulled for 4 fouls, and I'd say it was just no more than a Sean McCurran was turned over twice in a row there, and I think it's just this. it's a ruthless game. Like you've seen this with the way changes come. It's just they pull it fast. I when Cameron Roy's second kick there when it went up in the air, you're kind of thinking, oh gee, like is this guy in trouble here? But in fairness, he just dug it out and had a savage block a couple of minutes later. So no, like I mean, I think it's from a Barna perspective, it's brilliant that they're both in there and involved and etc. And Reece Butler is in there actually as a physio as well for in his first year. And I'm sure from his perspective, it's yesterday was a brilliant day. And look, they're it's I was just before I was talking to you, I was out at a Comortis game in Barna, and the two boys were there. Like, and it's for the club, it's great to have them part of that too. Like, it's a real badge of honor. So, no, competition is healthy, and I have a funny feeling that if it came down to it, they can both be accommodated.
Good political answer there, Mark. Well done. Cook coming in, it like just great to see him back playing in County Jersey for Galway, but like the shadowing he did yesterday, particularly out in Fergal Bowland a few times because they knew he was a danger. I just thought he did a lot of dirty work yesterday that probably unseen and won't get highlighted.
Yeah, and I mean that was a ballsy call to bring him back.
Yeah.
You will see that that can go wrong for managers to break the rule of lads have to be there from the start and that they come in. And you saw it with Keane Hearn last year, obviously, and you saw it with Peter Cook this year. But at the same time, you've got a squad who are there from the depths of winter, and they make a cut there 2 weeks ago, and those lads are let go, and then you've somebody else coming back in, and the whole thing can be getting the pitch of that right and for striking a balance it can be a tricky thing. And in fairness to that group, they seem to have managed it very well. And you can see, like, go back to my basic point earlier on about football being a meritocracy. You can see why this guy is back involved. Like you'd see I think the highest shot involvements for Galway in 2 years ago, I think. So I mean, there's guys like this who just can make their mark. Like they really can, and there will be huge value to that. And you see the nature of the game now. That's one thing about like a Kyle Sweeney. Let's say I think maybe in the new rules is he better as a wing back rather than as a wing forward because kickoffs are just so important here. And Peter Cook is just another asset in that regard for Galway.
He could sort of stay as that role maybe as the year progresses, given we just have so many midfielders and giants. Maybe before this we didn't have one to kind of come in and add to this, but he seems to be that player now.
Yeah, and again, I think it'll depend on what they're coming up against. So I mean, the one. I thought if you saw the one, not chink like, but the one sign for you're never as good as you feel after a win, you're never as bad as you feel after a loss. So from a goal perspective, you definitely do see this year when the intensity goes like really, really up, that kind of layers of sharp focus. They do feel the strain of that. Like you saw it in the Dublin League game, you saw it in the Kerry League game, you saw it at times there yesterday. And I think if teams are looking at that, they're going to be saying, forget about you go in and you start wrestling with any of them, with Keen Darcy, with John Maher, you're going in with a heavyweight there. Like you're probably going to come out the wrong end of that. If you're not coming out the wrong end of that, you're coming out black and blue. But can you go in and blitz them? Like go with full blooded. We're going to go absolutely gung ho to the max. Make this a very very frantic game. Get them moving, and then maybe we'll have to see what we're going to do in that regard. So the fact that they have like they can as a squad they can mix it both ways and you'll see that like I don't think for argument's sake I don't think there's a lot of players there yesterday who I think would be uncertain of their starting spot still. Like they're still not absolutely cast iron in their head despite what they've achieved, despite how good they've been. And that's a sign of the competitiveness in the squad. I keep going back to it. I asked Sean Kelly about the squad after the Tyrone game in the league this year, and he said it feels like a war to get into their 26. And if that's the case, if that's how they're all feeling that, like competition is healthy, and you've got a lot of pretty good options there now that would if I said to you Galway going into the second half here against the wind, and they're not going to have Shane Walsh, Damien Comer, and John Maher. Would you have said they're going to win? Like so the developing that does have its payoff
How would you view this group of death we're going into? Obviously, we're going to have Dublin at home. Now, what is the story there? Because Antrim are obviously due to play
on the
Galway
Saturday too.
this
Yeah,
Saturday, and obviously you'll have Leinster Council with the tickets for the Antrim game, and then
yeah.
obviously
I was checking that today. The honest answer is I'm not sure yet. Um, the group itself is a gauntlet. It's
Yeah.
like that. I think that Dublin game is so dangerous. Like, I mean, just that group coming off the back of that loss, and if you're ever going to see a sting like a proper kickback, it's going to be here. And Galway are just you come off an incredibly physical game. You've got a couple of injury concerns. You Dublin sitting there seeding. Like, you've got a pissed off Conor Callahan and Bugler and Brian Howard coming down the tracks here now. Like that game is serious. The one thing I'll say about this, regardless of who wins or loses that game, I don't think it'll mean they'll top the group. The teams will take scalps out of each other throughout this. I think you could see a group like the Kerry Mayo group a couple of years ago, where Mayo bet Kerry early on, but then Kerry end up still topping it because of results everywhere. If some teams
Yeah.
can beat so another team. I think it's primed to be a group like that. The way the fixtures fall means that the big game for Galway, I think, is the that Derry game, the middle game there. Like that's because you've got either a Derry who've shown something phenomenal and have arrested the slide in their first game, or they're under siege. Like that it's that fine for them. That second game for them will be
They've had
absolutely
loads of
massive.
times to fix things. I think there's a couple of even you're hearing it from different supporters that Derry aren't going that well, but I don't buy that at all.
I mean, the forget it, like whatever about any of that, Paul. Derry's only job now for me is look at the team they were finishing out the league with, and you're saying, can we get Conor Glass fit, Ethan Doherty fit, Kieran McCall fit, Brendan Rodgers, get him right. Like don't that all they need to worry about is doing that, and if they do that, they're formidable. Like there's they're a serious team, so that's a threat. So look, it's a really, really tough group. There's no getting away from that. Galway have found themselves in the toughest group a couple of times in the years. This is not like the other ones, though. Like, with the greatest respect in the world, teams are going into that group last year and still saying, I'd still back us to beat Westmeath and go through. There's
And
no
it's
team saying
one
that
game left. Yeah.
in this context. It is four teams who spent the year in Division One, four teams at their best who are very, very serious sides, four teams who would have started out the year with genuine All Ireland ambitions. So there's no getting away from it. It's a really tough task. And that's why I think it's really good that Galway are going in there with this sense around them. Like the mood will just be brilliant. They'll be bouncing into that. Um, I- as much as I think that Dublin game is very dangerous, I have also know that Galway won't fear it.
That one game, I was laughing when I started looking at the fixtures yesterday after the one, and it could be Armagh being the last game for the third year in a row,
Oh
repeat the
man.
All Ireland final as well. Could be going probably more likely if Armagh are to lose that now. It could easily be Donegal if they lose it too, but there's a high chance Galway are going to Markovich or Kerry Shannon again for the last game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a book to be written about the Armagh games that I've covered for Galway for every different reasons for football reasons for kitman reasons for everything that's gone on around that fixture has been nuts. So I, though for that reason alone, I hope that doesn't happen. Look, I mean that again, like that Ulster final will be. Galway managers don't usually go up to it. I'm sure they'll be in Clonus on Saturday. That'll be blockbuster, and no matter who comes out of it, you've got a serious side coming into that group. So, uh, I mean, it's if it does come down to a yet another showdown with Armagh. Part of me thinks it would be absolutely blockbuster. Another party is like, oh, not again.
Yeah, yeah, something fresh. The big one for you, Mars, the Galway All Ireland favourites.
Um, no, I'm gonna say I'm gonna say no. I think Kerry are favourites. That's a function of I'm not sure is their path actually that preferential, but they're regardless of that, like they're not going to come in
They
for
could be in
argument's
an All
sake.
Ireland semi final without playing a Division One team.
Yeah, which is just bonkers, really. Uh, but even still, like did the path Galway took to an All Ireland final last year take it out of them? I mean, from a physical perspective, like was it a cause of some of the injuries that they ran into down the back at the end of the year? And I'm not saying Kerry are going to manage their players through the next spell, but I don't think that threat is the same thing that's there. So they will arrive fresh and ready for knockout football, which you couldn't say from a Galway perspective. So for me, I think Kerry League champions, some of the football they're playing, how quickly they took to their new rules, are favourites, and then yeah, Galway are right there. I mean, I do think whether or not they're favourites or not, there won't be a team who will like to see them coming now. Like they know they're in for war. They know that kickouts are going to be bedlam. They know it's going to be very, very hard to break them down, even in the new rules. So they're not a team that I think every single team is looking at them and saying, yeah, maybe we can get after this, but there's always kind of a caveat to that they're a very versatile team. You're seeing they're such a resilient group as well. That means that nobody will fancy playing them.
Yeah, it does seem that way. On the minors and 20s, yeah, I didn't really touch on the 20s last week, just didn't get a chance with the build up to the final. But firstly, on the 20s, obviously, there's a lot of commentary. This was the minor team that won the All Ireland. They lost the B final, obviously, to Leitrim. Did play now a lot of players that didn't see game time as well throughout the 20s campaign. But like overall, how would you view the 20s campaign?
Look, the first point, Paul, like, is that despite maybe the upset about it and everything that comes with it, this is a development grade. Like that is what its function, right? Like there's no so it's not necessarily about silverware as much as great as it does to feel and all that kind of stuff. I think you saw the potential of this Galway group in that Mayo game. Like you saw, and that's a Mayo team that have now gone on to win a Connacht title. And geez, they've got some absolutely outrageous forwards. So that's the first thing I would say. Like you saw the potential in the group, and the frustration is the fact that they didn't realize that more. And I think that will be very frustrating. I think there still is like nobody. I'm sure anybody saying wouldn't do this anyway. There still is some very good players from that group, like the guys you will see play for Galway or go back to their clubs and have very good years. Like Costello, like leading the line the way he did, and even something as small as not going to New York, like making that call as a young lad. I just think it shows a lot about a fella, like what he stands for. Like I thought that was very admirable. I'll give the Barna plug here. I suppose like I think Sean Dunn against Mayo especially was excellent. He's been a brilliant player for Barna already for 2 years at senior. Um, so a guy that you will see a lot more of. There's a couple of guys in that bracket. I think Vinny Gale for Cardiff Times was absolutely outstanding this year. But it is still disappointing the way it ended. There's no getting away from that. The group will tell you that. I don't mean the Leitrim game here now. Like that's park that for a second. Like, but just the way that the year finished and that they didn't. Did you see that group at their absolute best for a consistent period? I'm not so sure. So that would be frustrating. That will be particularly frustrating. And it's probably not like the last couple of years. You looked at those 20s groups and you saw 4 or 5 lads. Yeah, they're going into the senior setup next year. I think maybe it's only one or two of this group that you might see next year, and it might take a bit more time for them to come through. So it's not the Sam O'Neill year when you got basically four
Yeah.
lads coming in at once. I don't see that happening. So I definitely think the way that it finished, the lack of full realization of what's there will be a sore one.
How do you think it went from an All-Ireland minor title to tier two? Because I know a lot can change in 3 years and everything, and that has to be factored in. And it does have to be factored into the guy lost to Mayo twice that year for people that would say they did go on to win the All-Ireland. But how have the levels dropped off so much in 3 years?
Yeah, there's a couple of things there. Like it's not the same group. Firstly, like you've lost lads to other sports. You've
Particularly Moss, Ferry,
I
Conor
was about to say, yeah.
McGill, yeah.
Yeah, So I was about to say you've got you've got young Trayers there who was a
Mm.
deadly footballer. Like no, it's serious hurler now too. Don't get me wrong. Like, but Shane McGlinchey's injury was just cruel. Like really cruel. And there's a guy now that I mean, you talk to people from other provinces, and they would have been saying, "I can't wait to see this guy, what this guy will do this year." So that was a real frustration that came when it did. The difference a guy like that would make midfield in the new rules is just, oh my God, it is amazing. So that was a huge loss, and that's just bad luck. Look, you just chalk it down. There's not much more to be said about that. Then there's like you've got lads who are still trying to. I sound very philosophical here, like trying to find themselves, but like I think they struggle to nail down a spot for, let's say, a Lonergan this year. Like, what exactly is where's he at his best? How do you get the most out of him? And maybe the virtue of this grade is that you have as many games as you do, and does that striking that balance between how much rotation you need and starting your best team is a very, very tricky thing. So, I mean, does I think it's not necessarily like it's not as black and white as it looks. And All Ireland winning team are suddenly down. Like they came. I mean, we talked about referee decisions. You live and die by them. Like the end of that Mayo game, I'm sure will be very, very sore for management, especially. But at the same time, like you can't get caught up on that stuff. Like, you just have to look at it, the hand you were dealt. Did they benefit from being exposed to an intercounty setup? Did they experience good coaching? Will we see a couple of these lads play for Galway? In my opinion, yes to all three of those. Just the big concern is the way they just didn't realize what they have there. Like, did they max out? No, nobody could say that they did, and that'll sicken a lot of people involved there, I would say.
And the miners, they had a chance obviously to get through in that Connacht semi-final. It didn't go their way. The scoreline flattered Mayo in one perspective because Galway were thereabouts until probably that last 5 minutes. Mayo went out by 9 points in the end. That brings them now into the Tier 2 championship.
Yeah, nothing you can do about it. A bad coincidence, a weird one that the fixtures fell the way that they did. That you saw you're in this kind of peculiar situation as manager. Like, do you stick or twist before playing the same team again, and how do you balance that turnaround? So, look, park that again. Go back to my.
It is strange that that didn't double up though, because it had no influence whatsoever on a home semi-final. It was going to be in McHale Park regardless of what I won.
Yeah, I was wondering about that afterwards. Like, what was the logic of, for argument's sake, not just putting in two for one? Is it that they want to guarantee every team a set number of games, and that you just have to you hit your quota? Like, so yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. You want to talk about development grades? Like, you watch 17 football now, and it is ultra developmental and from every single perspective. So, uh, I wouldn't be. I wouldn't overreact to that either. I think, like, I get the sense, right? People are looking at underage football in Galway the last couple of years, and there's a bit of like, where are we at? Like, do we have the strength coming? And like 20s, yeah, that's a gauge of senior success. Minors is not a gauge of senior success. The correlation academically is minimal. Like, it is not to the same extent. Now, there is definitely, I'm not dismissing it from a 20s perspective, but at a minor level, it's not there. So that what you want to see there is there good people involved? Is there good coaching there? Do lads get proper exposure? In my opinion, yes, you saw that. I think it's a good pathway for, like Gary O'Donnell who was involved with them last year. That's a good idea. Like, a guy like that should be involved in coaching in Galway. So that will definitely that's a net benefit for the county. But at the same time, right, parked all the angst about what you're seeing at the underage structures. Look at the Galway team that played on Sunday, and look at what we're just talking about with Lee McNeil kicking the winner, or a Matthew Thompson, like the mid-tier lads, like lads who will be there, fingers crossed, for a decade, and they look in good nick, like they look well able for it. So I wouldn't. This is such a trite journalist thing to say. Like, I wouldn't overreact to what has happened over the last couple of weeks. I do think what you're seeing at senior level is that when lads get to that, when they're put into a proper pathway, they're able to develop lads at a rate of knots. And if we can keep doing that, the slide isn't coming.
Just one final point I want to make on that minor game. I agree with you. I think there's a bit of a disconnect between minor when it comes to senior, and I made the point going down to the game yesterday. Was there any reason why this minor game couldn't be put as the curtain raiser to yesterday's game? Because you had supporters coming in early and everything. You could have put that at 2. The seniors is obviously at 4. Is there any reason that that couldn't be a curtain raiser to the game?
The logic seems to be that they don't want to expose lads as young as they are uh, to the provincial final crowd and everything that comes with that. I'm not. I'm not sure about that one. I think young lads would get a kick out of that. I don't think. I mean, people are generally reasonable, and they would appreciate that it's a minor game that they're watching beforehand if they were. I think the best argument to do that, to double it up as a curtain raiser, is for supporters. It's just you would have, like, you're going to as many underage games as I am. You see that it's the same faces. Like, it's just diehard friends, family, and diehard Galway fans who are at these games, and the same people are typically going to the game on Sunday, and it's just like it's just not fair in the pocket. Like it just isn't. So from that, that's the best argument I could make for it. And I do think like a provincial final should be like the thing at halftime was cool. You know, to see the thousand team
Yeah.
and to get them a proper night out. And I thought the reaction that John O'Mahony's wife got was just class. Like just I mean, like a very touching thing. But it should feel like a day. Like you know, it should be like a proper no more than not fine, like make it a proper event. And if it is to have a curtain raiser like that minor game, I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I definitely think something before it would be an advantage there. But that's all we do have time for on today's show. Thanks for coming on to this week's podcast, Mark.